extremely difficult to be the last speaker on the post-lunch session. But I hope you'll bear with me while I go through a few slides. This is unusual if you recall my previous presentation at the last event, when I didn't use a single slide, and my former professor actually was a little surprised seeing a management consultant up without slides. So I thought I'll be a little more predictable this time and use a couple of slides. The only reason I'm using slides actually is because I wanted to share some information which we collected and we presented a couple of months ago with GTZ about the competitive positioning of the Delhi NCR region. And I want to actually extend that to the current presentation that I'm going through today. The first thing I wanted to actually share is a statement that was made yesterday while I was riding the train back from Gurgaon, the metro. It's actually a very interesting journey because you can actually sit in one place and listen to all that's going on around you. There's a very interesting statement by a young professional, looked like a technology professional. And this is a very confident statement that India will be a developed country in the next 25, 30 years, maybe even less. And then you have all the discussion and the arguments going on television and the newspapers about how pan-stained sinks and dog paw prints on mattresses throw off all the preparations, and we're seeing talk about different standards of hygiene and stuff like that. How do you reconcile these two realities? They are both realities. Here's a young Indian very confidently talking about being part of a developed nation, and we have the reality around us. Those who live in Delhi are actually living with it every day. It's been absolute hell the last 1 year if you're on the roads. Well, so let's put it in perspective. I think in the garment industry, if you look at where we are, clearly we are among the leading exporters in the world. Therefore, we must be amongst the most competitive. However, if you look at the global competitiveness, and if it were an index, there is one country which is far ahead of everybody else, and that's China. There's a huge gap between that country and then the next lot of 5 or 6 countries that want to compete and be amongst the leading exporters in the world. We sit as a country of 1.2 billion people somewhere in the middle of small countries like Turkey and Bangladesh and Vietnam. There's clearly something wrong with that picture. If you are part of this industry, if you're part of this industry in India, you have to look at it as something, there's something missing. Given the size of the industry in terms of employment in the country, given the size of the country, given the development that we've seen in the country, in other sectors, in other industries in the last 15 or 20 years. So, and the other thing which is very crucial and critical, I would say, on this graph is the fact that a couple of the other competitors that we're comparing ourselves with seem to be picking up pace. They seem to be growing in market share in their global trade. If you look at India from the point of view of, if you tabulate it, India sits 5th in that year. I think the position hasn't changed in 2009. I doubt that the position would have changed significantly in 2010 as well. So we'll be somewhere around 5th or 6th in that list. Vietnam actually could have come up a little bit more. I don't have those statistics at the moment, but I suspect Vietnam would be a little higher and might even be number 5 in 2010. When you look at the next 20, there's a very interesting fact. If you were to treat Delhi as a country, then Delhi would actually come up 19th on the list. And there's something important hidden in that set of statistics. The fact that Delhi NCR contributes about 25% of India's exports must say something about what India is good at competing at. One of the things that you've got to remember is that market share is not something which is a given. The actions that we take, the decisions that we take, the strategies that we adopt, and how we implement them can actually change market share, either up or down. So when we're looking at our market share, when we're looking at China being up there and so on and so forth, it's not something which is fixed, even though it seems like the last 3 years have been fairly static. It's not something which is fixed. We can actually change it. Secondly, global apparel trade is not about the lowest cost. And I've said this earlier, and I will say this again. India has business, Delhi has business, despite the fact that we are not the cheapest. And there must be something in that. We know product design. There was a small reference Paul made about product design just a few minutes ago. There is something in that. We are extremely, extremely sharp about product development. And that's why, or that's at least one of the reasons why, the world comes to India. There is also something which we shouldn't miss, that there's a lot of potential still untapped as far as we are concerned as a country, as an industry. And I'd like to throw up a couple of slides on statistics, and I'll help you interpret them as well, as to where the potential, where the opportunity might be. Let me just go to those opportunities, actually. These are some of the opportunities which we are missing. So if you look at the two graphs here, and I've taken the Delhi NCR figures, they are going to be slightly different if you look at the whole of India, but it'll be indicative. So if you look at what's important in Delhi, more than half of the exports come from broadly three product categories, which is women's and girls' blouses, women's and girls' dresses, and women's and girls' skirts. And this is something which has driven Delhi's exports since the 1960s and 70s. Right? And that's what we are really, really good at. And we hold, apparently, a significant share. Well, these products hold a significant share in our exports. However, when you look at the world imports, these only account for 11% of the total world imports. And if you can tell what's wrong with this picture, let me show you another one, which is where is the large chunk of world imports coming from? All of the products that are there on the left-hand side of that graph are the significant ones where there are very large opportunities available. And they account for less than 15% of Delhi's exports. And India is not very much different than this. So what we're doing, actually, is we're doing what we do very well, but we're not doing what the world wants. We focus, for instance, on cotton, which we are very good at. We're one of the largest producers of cotton. But one year the government decides to allow exports because the farm prices are, the farmers are taking a beating, and the farmers are a very, very important part of the country. More than 50% of India's population is involved in farming, and therefore, and cotton is a very large crop, and therefore there's a large vote bank as well, so politicians are bothered about that. And the cotton goes out of the country. What would the exporters do? They would import cotton, or they would have to pay higher prices. There are alternatives. There are alternative fibers which you can use, which the world, incidentally, also uses more of. But we are somehow, like a little bit like ostriches, head in the sand, focused on what we do very well. And that's what we will continue doing. Similarly, with the product categories, we are focused on doing the women's and girls' dresses. We are focused on doing wovens. So the wovens to knits ratio, for instance, in India has changed significantly over the last 10 years as Tirupur has grown. But Delhi hasn't. And I presume most of the people in this room are from Delhi. And you should be worried about this. If the world wants knits, give them knits. If the world wants polyester, give it polyester. It doesn't matter if you can't wear it in Delhi. Right? And there are opportunities in that which we are missing. And this is one of the biggest threats. So we're talking about global competitiveness, how to build global competitiveness. One way to build global competitiveness is not to get squeezed into the margins. Our product mix, sitting here in Delhi particularly, our product mix opens us to that risk completely. We risk being marginalized. We're focused on a certain look, which is the India look, and we are being marginalized because of that. 3 years, 2-3 years, the India look was in, it's going out, business will drop. It's predictable. It's like clockwork. No look can be in for more than a couple of years, 3 years at the most. You can stretch it, but you can't really sustain it year after year, right? So there has to be something which has to be more mainstream. The second thing is compliance, and I want to actually stress upon this because there are standards. It's not acceptable. There is a certain minimum standard that we need to follow. Otherwise, we will not have the business. Thirdly, we need to focus on value addition, which is more than just adding sequins and beads on the garments. We actually need to become more competitive as individual businesses. What this requires actually is a complete shift in business approach. First of all, we need to make it easier for buyers to do business with us. It's terribly, terribly tough for a lot of buyers to do business with India. They just don't understand the Chalta Hai attitude. They're not willing to go along with it. There were few choices 25 years ago. There are many more choices now. Business can go somewhere else, and it will if we don't make it easy for them to do business here. Secondly, and this is specific to Delhi, we always overpromise and underdeliver. Well, not everybody in Delhi, but a lot of us in Delhi do. And that's something which has to change. If we have set a benchmark, let's put a cushion to it, but make sure that we deliver within the time frame, for instance, or the cost, or whatever. Thirdly, the flexibility and the value addition. There's already a strength I think we need to build significantly on top of that. We need to actually increase the skill base. Somehow, that skill base is actually getting degraded. 10, 15 years ago, the merchants who were involved in the business from manufacturer's side were far more product-oriented and far more sharp about the trends in the market than they are today. And I don't mean to be disloyal, but I attribute that to the professional institutes that have come up partially. Because they're taught in a certain way. They're taught process, but they're not taught product, unfortunately. And that's something which needs to be really, really thought about and rectified very, very soon. Because other countries, if we look at other countries as competitors, are building those strengths. And we are losing ours due to our own efforts, due to our own visionary efforts of building more process. There is a need to build hard infrastructure. I'm not going to dwell on that. I think we're already running short of time. But this is not something which we can do alone. Obviously, the government needs to do a hell of a lot. But it will help to have a common voice if we were to talk to the government. What we can do is, as associations, as individual companies, build linkages within ourselves, between ourselves. Tirupur succeeded in doing that for a while. I think there's a little bit of a rift in that cluster as well. But if we look at any cluster that has actually developed, there is a lot of cooperation and collaboration between companies within the cluster. A lot more investment needs to happen in research and development, and this goes from basic market research, basic product research, to actually fundamental research in materials and surface treatments and those kind of things. We're not encouraging that. It doesn't require a lot of funds, but it requires some funds. And I think the industry can actually actively step in and provide those funds to institutions like IIT, like NIFT, whatever, but give it to people who are doing some cutting edge work, because that's required. If we don't do that now, we're not going to have a business 5 years or 20 years down the line at least. As far as immediate next steps are concerned, I think I mentioned this. One voice is very important. Looking at the market, looking at the government particularly, if you want policies, lobbying is required. You can't have 20 people lobbying. You can't have 5 people lobbying. You need one voice. You need a common platform, and that's something which we need to build. Secondly, the whole product diversification area, I think that's something which is a huge concern, given how much of a mismatch there is between global demand and Indian supply and NCR supply. Thirdly, market penetration. I think the presentation on the Bangladesh Association, I think, was talking about the same point. You can actually approach markets together. But the more important part in that is approaching. A lot of us actually miss out on that opportunity. We don't even go out to seminars or trade fairs that happen overseas. Very few people do. If you look at, I'm associated, as was mentioned earlier, with this trade fair or other forum called Prime Source Forum in Hong Kong. There are hardly any Indian companies there. Hardly. And it's in Hong Kong, which is a trade hub, remains a trade hub despite what is happening in China. There is a lot of business that happens through that trade hub, but there are hardly any Indian companies there. We don't reach out effectively enough to places where there is a concentration of buyers. I think we need to do that more effectively. We need to invest in systems. I'm glad there was this presentation on product data management and product lifecycle management. Back in 1993, I don't know how many of you remember this, Microdynamics actually launched PDM in India. There were hardly any takers for that. There are hardly any takers even now, unfortunately, for Gover's PDM or anybody else's PDM for that matter. Systems have evolved significantly. They've become much cheaper. I think it's time to look at it afresh. PDM is only one set of systems. Even just being transparent and open about information technology within the organization, I think, helps. And that's something which even small companies can do. It doesn't. The way technology has evolved, actually, small companies can today be as sophisticated as large companies if we just have the will to do that. And finally, I think this is one important part which we miss out on significantly. We need to invest in people. You cannot go with that mindset that I'm not going to train my people because they might actually leave for another job for a higher salary. What's the alternative? To not train and have half-baked people doing the job that you want a fully fledged professional to be doing? It's not possible anymore. I think we'll have to take that risk that somebody will leave. If you can create the environment for them to stay, I think it'll help. But the fact is, training is required. I think we are falling far short of that. There are plenty of areas which I can identify, which we have identified at Third Eyesight, in fact. I'd be glad to talk about them. But this is one area which I think needs a lot of attention. And to leave you with a thought, linking it to the thought I opened with, if we don't see ourselves as winners, we're not going to win. To win, we need to see ourselves as winners first and take the actions which will get us there. Thank you.
When you have a